Hi, welcome to Movie Review with Deborah Cristobal. I'm your host, Deborah Cristobal, coming to you from sunny Santa Barbara, California. And today, I'm reviewing Ford vs. Ferrari, directed by James Mangold, starring Matt Damon as Carroll Shelby and Christian Bale as Ken Miles. And this was basically a race car film, and I didn't even know that Ford tried to buy Ferrari, the car company, the Italian car company. And so it was really fun to find this out. And I saw this film with two guy friends, and there was a lot of action in this film. It starts out, and Matt Damon is, he's at a race, and when he meets Christian Bale is this race car driver and struggling mechanic, and he kind of has a bad temper, as you saw in the previews. And he is just so ornery, and he even throws a wrench and kind of ruins the car that he's supposed to be driving. But that doesn't stop him. And the whole thing about this is that Henry Ford II, who was Henry Ford's grandson, who was the owner at the time, he wanted to buy the Ferrari car company. And he sent Lee Iacocca to go to Italy to try to buy the company. And they acted like they were interested in the deal, and they totally humiliated the company, and they were bought by another company. And so Ford was so mad that he decided that he wanted to beat Ferrari at Le Mans, the very famous race that takes place in France, with an American car that they built themselves. And so that is the premise of this film. And Carroll Shelby, who is played by Matt Damon, he actually won the Le Mans race in 1959. And I didn't know he was a race car driver. I just have heard of him from the Shelby Mustang, and he's a very famous car designer, and everybody knows his name. But they do show footage of Matt Damon driving in Le Mans, and he won the race, but he actually had to quit racing because he had a heart condition. So he couldn't race anymore. It was just too hard on his heart. So Christian Bale's character, Ken Miles, kind of becomes his other half, you might say, since he can't race anymore. And so anyway, as they're trying to build this car, the two of them kind of team up together, Shelby and Ken Miles, to make the perfect car to beat Ferrari at Le Mans. And so in this film, there is so much action, and the way that they show it is very effective, because you're actually, as a theater goer and spectator, you actually feel the thrill of being in the race car. And I mean, we were sitting closer to the screen than I normally sit. And I could literally feel the ground underneath me vibrating. I don't know if they had the volume turned up really loud, but I almost felt like I was on a ride at Magic Mountain or something like that, because you really, really feel the effects of being in a live race car. So that's pretty thrilling. And they do a great job with all the cars and stuff, because they know that there are so many car fans and car fanatics that they literally they could not use the real cars because the real cars are so expensive, and they couldn't. They had to really push them to get all the sequences that they wanted to film. So they really had to push these cars. So what they did was they had them built, and then somebody had to, all the research they did with all the photos of the time, because this was taking place in the 60s, went and looked over everything, and they actually put racing stickers and all the things that would have been true to the time, so that any race car fanatics would not be thrown off and say, oh, that wasn't how it was, and blah, blah, blah. So they really painstakingly did a lot of research. And Le Mans, the track, has changed so much that they couldn't film all the parts of the racetrack on the actual racetrack. So they had to recreate part of it. And what they did was there's some land in Georgia that they were able to shoot on. And then they also recreated the stands at Le Mans at the Agua Dulce Air Park, which is a private airport in Santa Clarita here in California. And there's also a really cool scene where they're driving in the rain, and apparently it really was raining, and they really shot it in the rain. So they got some really great footage, and apparently on some of they did do some digital fixing, but the director wanted the real racing action, and he sort of likened the action to a gunfight, sort of like the revving the engines and the showdown of the drivers and everything. And it really does feel like, kind of like that. He wanted the Sergio Leone spaghetti Western sort of feel to it. And it sort of does. I mean, it is a period piece because it does take place in the 60s. I love all that set design from the 60s, the offices and the cars and what people are wearing. And they really get that. They do a great job with that. So visually, it's really fun to go back to the 60s and see what was in fashion, and especially the cars. And also, the acting is fantastic. Matt Damon is always fun to watch. He's so relaxed, and you know that he did probably a ton of preparation for this role, and he gets the accent down really well. And he has that sort of just very solid confidence about him. His character is very confident, and you feel just really, you have a lot of fun. You kind of go on that fun ride with his character. And then Christian Bale is really fun to watch. I think this is one of his best roles. He is, even though he's very ornery and has a bad temper and all that kind of stuff, and he's a real his character is a real perfectionist with all the mechanics of the cars and all the technical details of why this thing doesn't work or whatever. There's a real heart inside of his character, and he has a little boy in the film who's played by Noah Jupe, who's so cute and a really good actor. Even though he's young. And apparently Christian Bale's agent, when he saw the script, talked to him and said, hey, this guy is you. You've got to take this part because this guy is you. And because, as we know, he sort of has that reputation in real life as being sort of a kind of like his character, kind of ornery and having a fit now and then. And Josh Lucas plays Leo Beebe, who is the one who was in charge of the racing part of Ford. And he is so good in this role. we're used to seeing him as the all-American good guy. He is an all-American for sure in this, and he looks great. He's all duded up in his suits and everything because he's an executive back in the 60s, kind of Mad Men style. But he's so snarky. He's kind of a little bit evil underneath that smooth, slick exterior. And of course, he's so handsome. And I had the pleasure of meeting him last year at Santa Barbara Film Festival because he was here with a fantastic film that he was in, and he was playing the bad guy. And he made a really good bad guy. And so of course, it's always fun seeing him, and he's just super sweet in real life. And he did a great job in this film. And I really liked it a lot. It had a lot of action, but at the heart of the film was the relationship between Matt Damon and Christian Bale's characters. And that really, the film really showed how close they were, what a good friendship that they had. They threw in a few extra things for drama. Apparently, things weren't as firecrackery as it shows, but they had to throw some things in for dramatic license. And I read this really interesting article. Carroll Shelby, they don't talk about his relationships or his marriages or things like that, because they kind of were more focusing on just, so he was in the film, it looked like he was single. But there was an article written by a woman and talking about how in those days in the 60s with the race car circuit and that whole world, that women were not taken seriously, and, just pretty much, what's new. But it was really interesting coming from a woman's point of view as far as all the kind of the old boys network and all that kind of stuff, because of course nowadays we do have women race car drivers. And so I thought that was kind of an interesting spin on that whole subject. So I really liked this film. The effects of the racing were amazing, and the acting is great. And you can see that everybody's having a lot of fun with their characters. Everybody in the cast is having a lot of fun, you can tell, playing their characters. And so that makes it fun for us to watch. So it's still, this movie, Ford versus Ferrari, it's still in the theaters. And I would recommend it. It was really fun. And guys and girls both, I think, would enjoy it. And there you have it. So thanks for joining me today. I'm your host, Deborah Cristobal, coming to you from sunny Santa Barbara, California. You can find us on iTunes and all the places where you listen to podcasts. I also have another podcast called Fashion Review. You can follow me on Instagram at Deb Etoile. That's at Deb, D-E-B. Etoile is E-T-O-I-L-E. And I will see you the next time. Bye.